Hi there, welcome back. And so now let's continue on with the final portion of our lecture, which is the postdoc test. So looking at our research design, what we really want to do is to figure out, using the posthoc test, where the mean differences lie. Now do note that we're not going to run a posthoc test for the main effects because we already know that these two means within imagery are different, whereas these two means within complexity are not significantly different. And so in terms of main effects, we already know whether or not there are significant differences in means and in what direction that would be, because by looking at the means themselves, if it's just two means, then you know which one is higher versus lower. Now the question though here with the posthoc test is whether these means differ amongst themselves, and so which means are different from one another. And so that is what we're trying to figure out using our posthoc analysis. So again, you need a posthoc test only when you're comparing three or more means, which we are doing by looking at the interaction effect. And how to do that in our studio is this. And so first of all, you want to save your ANOVA model using the AOV function. And so the LM model object that you saved already should go in here within the AOV function. And you want to save this entire model into another object. And then you can run Tukey's test again, but this time using Tukey HSD function. And what you would do is to name the object in which your AOV model is saved in. And so it's kind of like model within a model. And then indicate which means you want to have compared. So in this case, you can just put down which equals and then in quotation marks the interaction term. And so it would look like your factor A colon factor B. And so you'll see an example of that in our studio. Now, in order to better understand the means that you're comparing, you would also most likely want to run model.tables function. And that will give you a very nice overview of all the means that you're looking at with your factorial design. And so model.tables, and then you would mention the AOV model name, and then fill in the rest, and you can run that. So we'll take a look at that entire process in our studio. So welcome back. And so here we are, and I have written down the code for the posthoc tests. Now, first of all, you might remember that we want to save the model, the LM model object, as an AOV model. And so you will see that I have carried over the name of the LM object. So this is the model that we ran, and put it inside the AOV function. And then I'm going to call that object recall AOV. But again, you can call it however you like. And then I have run that. And then now we're ready to run the Tukey HSD. Now in this case, in parentheses, we want to give our studio the AOV object. And so here's the recall AOV. And then I'm going to ask for the comparison of means for this interaction term, which is imagery colon complexity. And so let's try running that. And here we are. And so here you will see that the Tukey HSD gives you pairwise comparisons between two of the means that are inside that 2x2 grid. And then the p-value will let you know which comparisons are significantly different, essentially. And so there's only one line here that has a p-value that is not significant. And so we'll go over to PowerPoint shortly to talk about how to interpret it. Before we get there, though, it would be nice to know what the means were that were being compared. And so what I'm going to do is to run the model.tables function that you already know now. And again, we're going to use the AOV model here. And then we're going to ask for means. And let's try running this code and see what we get. So here we are. And so this is very nice, isn't it? So here are the means. This is the grand mean for non-recall. And so that is the entire sample. And then imagery was broken down into bizarre versus ordinary. And here are the means for each level. Same for complexity, the means for each level. And then here are the means that go into that 2x2 grid. And so it gives you a nice little table of those means that you're comparing. So let's move on over to PowerPoint again to go over some of these results. So what did we just do? And so this is your favorite 2x2 grid for this particular lesson. And we're comparing these means using the posthoc test. And so translating this, by using the model.tables function, we were able to obtain all the means that are here. So I have copied over the means into this table, and then we're using the Tukey HSD test. You compared these means against one another. And so here was the result. And again, if you look at the p-adjusted column, then you will notice that all these comparisons appear to be significant. And so all these means are significantly different from one another, except for this particular row. So the mean for those folks in the bizarre low condition, and then the mean for those people that are in the ordinary high condition. And so going back to the 2x2 grid, what it's saying is that these two means are not different. And so looking at the numbers, what we found was that these two are not significantly different from one another. And eyeballing these means, I suppose that's not that surprising because those are the means that are the closest together, whereas the other means appear to have more distance from one another, and they appear to be significant differences according to Tukey HSD. So I'm just summarizing what we just said. And so to sum up, as you know now, two-way ANOVA tests for the effects of two categorical IVs. And we're looking at two main effects along with one interaction effect for those two categorical IVs or factors. And then if you find significant effects, especially for the interaction effect, you would want to run the posthoc analysis. In order to do that, you would save the model using the AOV function, and so save that object, and then run Tukey HSD on it. And as you saw, we can use model.tables function to obtain a list of the means that apply to your 2x2 design. Very convenient. And so drum roll please, do you know what's coming up? It's your turn! All right! And so this is your turn to get a chance to flex those wonderful RStudio muscles and do your two-way ANOVA. And so this is using the Excel data set called attract. And so the research question you're answering is, does perceived attractiveness of a potential date differ based on the participant's relationship status, whether or not they're single or in a relationship, and also their facial similarity with that potential date, and so high or low similarity. And so the idea behind this research question is that, first of all, the researchers hypothesize that there may be main effects of status, relationship status, and similarity. So those who are single might rate the attractiveness of a potential date higher based on, let's say, taking a look at a photograph of that potential date compared to those who are already partnered or in a romantic relationship. And then there may be a main effect of facial similarity where participants may tend to rate potential dates that have higher facial similarity to them as being more attractive than those potential dates that have lower facial similarity. Now, that is all well and good, but then the researchers were also curious about whether that effect would reverse based on the relationship status of the individual. And so maybe those who are single would rate high similarity faces more attractive, so kind of a typically expected effect, whereas those that are partnered or in a romantic relationship may actually do the reverse and may rate low similarity faces as being more attractive, maybe compensating for the idea that they're already dating somebody with reasonably high facial similarity. And so that was the idea, and this idea that I'd written down here is essentially an example of an interaction effect, where the two factors combine in order to create the effects. And so go ahead and follow the procedures that were demonstrated in the lecture to look at your main and interaction effects. So please enjoy running your two-way ANOVA and look forward to hearing what you found. Now, if you have any questions though, please feel free to flag me down. I'm happy to lend a hand in any way I can. All right, well done this week. And so hope you have a great week or weekend, depending on when you're seeing this. Take care, and I'll be cheering you on. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.